Welcome to the Play, Inspire, Unite podcast. I'm your host, Ben Rycroft. This podcast is meant to lift the curtain about what goes on at Ontario Soccer. Too often, people fundamentally don't understand who we are, the role that the provincial body plays, and what we do in this game. These interviews with staff will discuss what they do, what's going on and off the field, and there's going to be interviews with those in the membership as well who continue to push the game forward and unite us around their passion. We'll also speak to those who are occasionally not from soccer but are here to inspire us. Today's chat falls under the play portion of this podcast, and our guest today is Dave Kelly, Manager of Coaching Development at Ontario Soccer, also known as the tallest man in the modern game. 8 feet tall, he tells me. Maybe not 8 feet tall.
Pretty much. 6'6" we'll go with.
You had an interesting route here, Dave. And being one of your first guests, I really want to sort of look into sort of your past and tell us a little bit about how you got here, because your route here is certainly not a traditional one. You were in England not that long ago, and yet here you are today working at Ontario Soccer. Sort of walk us through how you got to this point.
So I was originally coaching at Blackpool Football Club part-time, and I was a high school physics teacher. So just going through the process, everything going well, and my wife works for a large technology company, and she came home one day and said, look, there's some opportunities to move. Okay, so she gave me a list of countries that there was options to, and Canada was the one that was at the top of my list. So yeah, I said, let's look at Canada, and we got our right to work, and I think it was 4 weeks, 5 weeks, we were on the plane and we were moving.
So how long ago was this?
This was 2013.
Okay, so
yeah,
a little over 4 years ago.
Yeah, August.
So you get the notice that you can come here and work.
Yeah.
You don't have a job yet.
No.
So how did you find your way into soccer then?
So I, to be honest, just Googled clubs in Toronto, and it was North Toronto, funnily enough, that came up at the top of the list, and I reached out to the technical director at the time, and he was actually, luckily for me, in England in a few weeks from when I emailed him. So I went down to London and met with him and discussed it, and he said, look, if you're over and you've got right to work, there's some work for you. So
how crazy was that to tell your friends, like, yeah, I'm going to Canada, I don't have a job yet, but I'm hoping to work in soccer. Yeah. Like, they must have thought you were mad. You're leaving a good job at Blackpool. Yeah. You're leaving a teaching role. Yeah. They must have thought you were crazy.
Yeah, they did. When I went to hand in my resignation at the school I was at, it was crazy. He said, oh, okay, where are you going? Yeah, I'm going to Toronto. I'm going to Canada. Okay. Yeah. Anything confirmed yet? No. Well, how's it all come around? Well, I met this guy in London. Okay, good luck. So it worked out, thankfully. I had a great time there. We moved over and got to know the city, got to know the country pretty well. And yeah, 3.5 years, great years at NT came to an end, and an opportunity came up at Ontario Soccer. And
you got your start here as a regional manager. Yeah. That's one role I think people don't necessarily understand what it is and what they do. Like, I think they sort of understand they'll go out and give presentations, but you're not in that role now. You're of course in coaching, but you got your start there. So maybe speak to that a little bit. Like, tell us what that role is. There's a lot of travel involved.
Yeah, there is a lot of travel. It's a great role. It's split up into different parts. So I'd say a quarter of it was looking at working with the districts and trying to go into districts, work with them, produce presentations on behalf of the district for coach development and grassroots information. Right. So, and then the second part of that was also to meet in the districts with the technical directors of all the districts, to then get a better message and getting a better understanding of what they need, what's required, and how Ontario Soccer can support and work with them. Right. So that was a major part of the role. The next part of the role was to work within the OPDL and look at grassroots and make sure with the OPDL technical directors that their grassroots programming was strong, it was well supported, and it was a two-way process in order to help them develop, in order to help the grassroots programs evolve and move from one area to another in terms of growth.
So what does like a typical week look like for that role? Like what would you be doing in a typical week? Walk us through Monday to Friday.
So a typical week for a regional manager there's a lot of variation. For a start, you had a large area of the province to cover, but then you would generally communicate a lot with the technical directors of OPDL clubs. You would then communicate on a lot with districts, so there'd be days at home where we work remotely planning, and then there'd be days on the road, or 3 or 4 days where you'd be doing a little bit of a road trip, going out to different clubs, working with them and so on. So yeah, very, very varied.
Yeah, and that's what's sort of interesting about it. Like, I don't think people really get that you are going from Kingston to Windsor to up north and touching base with your responsibility is to each of these clubs to help them better what they're doing. So it's a support role for hundreds of clubs in some respects. So you've now made that shift. You're no longer a regional manager. You've moved into coaching. You've been in the role for 2 months, which obviously big shoes to fill. Previously, Mark Marshall, Bobby Lennox, Billy Wilson, all real sort of luminaries in our community still. And I mean, you do have big shoes, being that you're 8 feet tall, but it's still, it's one of those things that you sort of, you take on the expectations that we're currently set, and sort of high expectations. So first, sort of what's been the first 2 months been like? I mean, imagine a lot of catch up, just because it's been a little while since that role had been filled. So you're starting to get your grounding. What does that role feel like for you? What do you see for yourself in this role? Yeah,
it's a good role. It's exciting. As you mentioned, there was a period of time where the role was vacant. So there's a little bit of backlog there, and we had a little bit of a turnover on our coordinators as well. So we're pretty much a brand new team. So the first couple of months has been really looking forward to 2018, looking at all the courses that we need to offer and making sure they're scheduled, from C licenses to B licenses, soccer fitness diploma, and everything that we offer, and the female mentorship program too, making sure that they're all scheduled and they're up and running. So that's been a challenge, working back in the backlog, but also trying to plan forwards as well as kind of gelling a new team. So it's been a little bit hectic, but it's been a good challenge so far. So
how many courses in a year would your role be responsible for, or you and your team would be responsible for?
Yeah, so a lot is the shortest answer in terms of the community courses. I think last year was a few hundred Soccer for Lives, a few hundred Learn to Trains, then lesser numbers but still quite high, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 courses in fundamentals, and then similar, just a little bit lower number on Active Start.
So is it like a staff member on site for each of those, or the LFs, or how does that work?
So we have coach developers which are spread across the province. So yeah, they would typically deliver those courses. They would work with Lyndon Hooper, who's our coordinator for all of those courses. Obviously a big role for him. But yeah, ultimately it's touching base with our community coach developers who are in the province and ensure that they've got all the support and the resources that they need to deliver those courses.
And you're also doing stuff on the national level, so they have the National B, which I believe is now called what?
Yeah, the National B Part 1. So there's been a big shift from Canada Soccer, and I think it's a welcome shift across the country. Canada Soccer's vision now is to standardise coach education and coach development across the country, which I'm sure we'd all agree with is a great move, one clear vision. So from 2015, the C licence replaced the old pre-B licence that we used to have. So Canada Soccer run that consistently across the country, or they've designed it, and it's up to each province to deliver that. So we've been delivering the C licence since 2015, and then recently the provincial B that used to be written by Ontario Soccer has been scrapped and replaced with the National B Part 1, which completes the Canada Soccer coach education pathway all the way through from community courses all the way through to the National A licence.
Right, that's refreshing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so that's our main role, is working with Canada Soccer to really make sure that their vision is implemented, is adhered to, and also refined. We had Sylvie out recently from Canada Soccer looking at our B licence Part 1 and refining a little bit of the content, and you know, they're very, very passionate about making their courses even better, and they're open to feedback to work.
So I want to come back to the coaching stuff in a sec, but there's been a little bit of things in the news recently. I would say some misinformation in the news recently about the travel rules in Ontario, and now that we're having an opportunity to talk to you, you were in that regional manager role previously, and you would have dealt with stuff like this, and you have an intimate understanding of sort of what the matrices say and why they say that. So I think it would be important. Ultimately, we're sort of being made to look like the bad guy in this instance, and we're out to ruin children's fun. I mean, that's obviously not the case. People around here spend large amounts of time and effort. It goes into ensuring kids play, that they stay in the game, they stay in the game longer. It's a massive part of how our identity, as well as sort of how we formulate our planning. You've seen that on the player development side. I wonder if you can speak to the A, why that rule exists, and B, help explain why it was developed and why it exists and what's it meant to do, as opposed to the general understanding currently that we're trying to limit children's fun, which obviously isn't the case.
No, like the U12 and below, and to be clear, they've got limitations on travel. And one of the reasons is that we want to keep grassroots soccer local and affordable. You know, we understand that there's costs to playing in Ontario, especially when we're playing in the winter climates. You know, it does become more expensive. So really what we want is that children to be able to go and play the game in the local community rather than having to travel great distances in order to do that. So that was the limitation. That's the reason the limitation was put on, was to say, okay, let's keep it local, let's keep it affordable, let's keep it in the community, and let's grow something together. And then at the later points when children have learned the skills, and that's really more what it's more important about, focusing on development, learning skills, having fun, playing with their friends. Once they kind of got all that, and then they want to go 13, 14 and, you know, older and beyond and go into those realms, then yeah, that travel opens up, whether it's traveling across the province at LPDL, whether it's traveling with their friends to tournaments, but really allowing them to focus more on the development at the younger ages than spending lots of time. We all know children don't like spending hours and hours and hours in the car.
Right, or the bus or whatever, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So really just to keep it local, keep it fun, and keep it accessible.
So I think that's sort of where people lose the plot to a certain extent. And I'm not saying everybody, obviously. I think that by and large the membership gets that this is for the best interest of these kids. But there is still some misinformation out there. So if you can sort of help people understand how the rule was developed. I mean, this wasn't something that Dave Kelly just came up with last week. It was like, I think this should be happening. This was done in conjunction with university sport experts, some of the world leading experts in sports science. So just sort of fill in the background there a little bit about how that came to be. Yeah,
so I think in around 2013 when LTPD was really brought in and put together, there was a lot of information. You know, Bobby Lennox, who was in the role of grassroots at the time, spoke to a lot of people. He worked alongside FIFA, he worked alongside different, like you said, university professors. We've showed the matrices to professors like Jean Coté, who's at Queen's University. He's advised on the NBA matrices and everything like that. So they really are an evolving piece, an evolving document, which we also share with our technical advisory committee. So that's set up, and there are people from across the province on different technical roles, different educational roles who give input to it. So it's really an evolving thing, and now currently they have 4 memorable events at U12 where they can travel 2 inside Ontario per year, and then 2 also where they can travel across North America. So the restrictions on travel aren't as restrictive, but the idea behind a memorable event was that going back to that family who may struggle to access soccer, they can maybe save up for that one a year.
So leveling the playing field, so to speak.
Yeah, and keeping it more accessible. That's really our main aim.
So just sort of spinning off of that then for a sec, so what are some of the things you think that the general membership at large doesn't understand about either Ontario soccer or your role in particular?
So I'd say, to talk against the regional manager's role, a lot of work is done behind the scenes, working with districts, trying to set up events, programs and so on, and also working with technical directors. So again, in a day working from home, I would have had 12, 13, 14 conversations with different technical directors across the province on smaller issues. Yeah, pretty much every day I'd speak to them a lot just to ensure that their programs in there supported. So that's one thing that's not seen. A lot of the session planning and webinar planning as well goes on in the background. Yeah, a lot of unseen things that we go out and meetings in order to make sure people are supported. I guess that's the hardest part. You know, you wouldn't see that on social media. Oh, great meeting today. You know, it's normally the on-field stuff which you've seen. But yeah, there's a lot of work behind the scenes on that.
So what are some of the challenges? I mean, we're not ambivalent to we're not perfect, and obviously it's an evolving system, and we're always sort of trying to change it so that it's reflective of the community's needs as well as the best interests of the kids and the game in general. So for coaching, what are some of the challenges you see ahead for Ontario soccer and the coaching community in general in this province?
Obviously, there's a lot of challenges in terms of geography. Well, we just touched upon that's a huge challenge to coaches. Then you've got the level of demand on coaches. So there's an increased demand on coaches from parents that's ever increasing, and also helping coaches to deal with that and clubs to deal with the demand and the pressure sometimes that's put on them. There might be times where they know that they're looking on the longer term process, but parents are saying, look, if we don't win these games, or I'm moving my child, and they have the balance of trying to retain players and grow programs, as well as you know, keeping the parents happy and helping the team develop and perform. So I'd say that's the biggest challenge for coaches, is helping them understand, or giving them the tools and education to work with parents to help understand the long-term process of development.
Just to go back there for a sec, you mentioned the movement of players. I'm not sure everybody sort of fully understands why that can be destructive to a sort of ecosystem. Yeah. Just expand on that for a sec.
So sometimes you have parents who, you know, they may have come from other sports, or they may have played the game historically where it was winning was everything at U8, U9, U10, U11, and even to an older extent too. So that they see success as the team winning, whereas coaches are trying to work on individual development of players within a team setting. So there can be some contrasts there. So typically what would happen is parents would say, oh, the team's not winning, I'm moving my child to a better team. So coaches are faced with a struggle of trying to help the individuals perform as a team, but also improve the players individually. It's a major challenge for them. Yeah,
how do we get to that point then? Because I think there is a lack of understanding about sort of the interest of that at that development stage. And I mean, we hear it all the time about scores and standings, and bring standings back, and it's about winning. If you don't grind it out of them, they will never be winners. So like, how do we get to a point where people understand the purpose behind that and the LTPD tenets that are sort of there to help support that development?
Yeah, I think the first battle is won. I think the vast majority of coaches I see and work with now, they're on board, they understand the development process. The coaching courses from Canada Soccer have definitely helped with that. Sure. The online webinars and resources that we put together, and generally the coaches coming together and communicating on social media really kind of pushes, and they help evolve each other. So that, I'd say that battle, the majority of that is won now. It's now giving the battle to help engage the parents and really understand when they're coming through that there has been a big cultural shift since maybe they played the game, or there has been a cultural shift in soccer compared to other sports which may emphasise more on that. So it's really helping the coaches to work with parents to really get that final message across.
What are the sort of things you're saying to the coaches then to help sort of empower them when they have those difficult conversations with mom and dad who want Billy to win? You know, that's an accomplishment for them. They want to win that trophy, so they feel like they've got their money's worth. Or how do you enable those coaches?
So really for us, it's working with the technical directors to give the coaches information and hold parent engagement sessions at the start of the season. This is what we're working on. This is what's to expect. This is what is age appropriate for us to be working on. You see a general question sometimes, parents will ask coaches, why are we not working on set pieces at U9? Where the coaches are trying to work with the players to be able to beat a player 1v1 or dribble or whatever it is. So I'd say that would be one of the main challenges is working now with parents to ensure that they have access to the coaches in an engagement setting where it's a presentation and coaches can really get their developmental philosophy across and really help them understand that this is what they're doing, it's actually best for their child.
So that's great to hear that there's buy-in on the coaching side now, and in the challenges to sort of help the parents understand who, like the coaches are the experts in these instances. Like they should be the ones that are listened to and show respect for the leadership in that context. So that's a big win for us in a lot of ways. Like from the time that I've started here till now, I've seen sort of a cultural shift beginning to take hold. For me, I have my own success stories, my own like love and passions, but what are you doing this for? Sort of like what drives you day to day and like to get up, come here, deal with X, Y, and Z, and sort of at the end of the day, feel like you've done something?
I think for me, coming into Canada and obviously coming into Ontario and where I'm from, I just see a huge amount of potential. There's so much opportunity here. You know, you see the domes that the people train in, you see the facilities, there's fantastic, and it's really set up for coaches and players to succeed. And currently, you know, there are barriers for that, and it's really trying to work to say, okay, let's work here, let's work together, and let's see what we can do, because we've got a lot of the tools now. So for me, to speak to my role, to help to develop coaches and give them access to different information to empower them to work, to improve players. That's really what drives me, because that's really what I want in order to see better coaches, see better players, and give players a good environment across the province and across the country.
So if there's one thing, and we'll end on this, if there's one thing that you could change today for tomorrow in Ontario soccer, what would it be that you would want to see change like that if you could? Obviously things don't work like that, but what would be that thing for you?
It's a tough question. It's almost for coaches and parents, almost like an introduction almost a presentation of, look, this is what's best, or something to allow them just to relax, calm down, enjoy the process and not focus on results. Because at the end of the day, it's the process that matters. It's enjoying, it's going to the sessions, enjoying it, coming back, socialising, being healthy, being active. If you access the high performance pathway, then great. But for me, it's really getting that message across of enjoy it. It's a game at the end of the day, and it's there to be enjoyed.
That's a great way to end it. And that's it for today. Dave, thank you very much for joining us. If you see him on the field, stop over, say hello, share your thoughts on what he talked about here today. On this or anything in general, he's always open to that conversation. He's 8 feet tall, folks. No, he's not 8 feet tall. I think he's 6'7". But he's easy to spot. And on Twitter, he's at Coach Dave Kelly. So tweet at him to keep the conversation going. And you're one of the more engaging people on Twitter. You're not afraid to get into a conversation and share your thoughts as well. And so that's fantastic. So if you like what we're doing here, drop a like on this video. If you haven't already, subscribe to Ontario Soccer and hit that notification bell so that you never miss a video. Until we see you next, we encourage you to play, inspire, and unite.